Paul, how concerned are you about the growing global taxation effort underway to fill an estimated $110 billion fuel shortfall by 2025? 110 billion. It's not pennies. So it's not Lincoln's. It's not even Jackson's. It's big dollars.
It's definitely concerning. The trucking industry right now is already under tremendous pressure. So any additional taxes, any additional burden on the transportation industry, in my opinion, is just not a good idea. We're in a very inflationary time. Fleets are talking about relocating and figuring out how they could save costs. So the more you pile on them in terms of tax regulation, the more they're fleeing in a different direction. I think that said, there's a real problem in trying to figure out how we could make sure that the revenue still continues in this type of marketplace. And I feel like the burden should be shared on both the petrol and on the EV side.
Is there even a way to share it on the EV side? Because if you look at let's use a Class 8 electric truck, on average, it's 50% more. You mentioned the high inflationary environment. We're having a divided world now. Scandinavia cut interest rates today. It looks like the ECB is going to cut interest rates as well, while the US is higher for longer. You have Citadels out there saying maybe we'll get one cut before the end of the year, potentially after the election. I don't know. You talk to shippers, the freight recession, they can't even afford a diesel truck, let alone an electric truck. What is the path forward of the companies that want to electrify? We say, listen, you're going to put a tax on this. We can't afford it. Now we already can't even afford it even more. Where do they go?
The bottom line is raising prices, right? This is why it's hurting the consumer. The consumer is the one who's carrying the burden. So while the policymakers are out there really driving what they think is climate objective, what they're doing is they're actually hitting the medium and small business owner, and it's really impacting them the most. The beneficiaries tend to be the bigger operators. That's exactly what we're seeing. So what tends to happen is that small to medium sized operator gets squeezed out of the market. And then now the larger operators take that marketplace, raise the prices anyway. So the effect is raising prices. It's inflationary. And then it doesn't help the transportation companies, but it is ingratiating the larger corporations that could absorb this at this period of time.
Raising prices eventually is going to trickle down to the consumer. We see inflation today at the grocery store. Does this open the form for new business models, new modes of delivery, or does the consumer just raise their hand and say, Uncle, we're done. We're not going to buy nearly as much as we do today because you're going to raise the prices?
They've been trying the latter, right? But the bottom line is we need to get to a point where commerce could start moving the right way and that the consumer's not getting hammered the way that they are. There is a middle ground. I think it's acceptable to say that you would like all of your goods to be transported and your logistics to be transported in a cleaner fashion. But I think there needs to be understood that there's a blend and how that needs to happen. So I think that there's a good middle ground that needs to be met. And I think that the key and the benchmark is going to be at the same price of diesel or below. So the goal here with electrification is to make sure that it delivers the promise of what it was supposed to from the beginning, a levelized cost and below the cost of a diesel eventually. But that inflection point needs to happen sooner. You can't impose that onto fleets before you actually have evidence and proof that you could do that at a lower cost. So the new business models, it's key. We're the top innovators in the world here in America. So what needs to happen is we need to innovate. And in this area, what's happening is I think, in my opinion, many companies are taking advantage of the funding that's out there and trying to really maximize the funding. They're not looking at a long-term business model. So the way Zeem views this is we need to take a look at the incentives and grants that are in place today to bridge to a business model that needs to stand on its own within the next 2 to 3 years, at least in my opinion.
You're right. Mr. Stanley Druckmeyer, the very famous hedge fund manager on CNBC this morning, says America needs to innovate. And Mr. Druckmeyer's right. You're also right. Business model. We're going to see this giant wave come. I'll even use the term a typhoon. That's going to clean out all the excess in the green energy space. You're here at Zeem. You're focused on economics. You're focused on a business model. You're probably one of, I'll be very frank, a handful of people that I know in the green energy space that are actually focused on that. Why?
I think a couple of different things. I first start off, I'm a Wall Street guy in my original DNA. I had invested in a company that should have been an absolute leader and innovator in commercial electrification. Through that process, this is going back to 2000 up until about 2015, I learned a lot about the industry and realized that for short haul, anything that's 200 miles and the technology is getting better, I can even stretch up maybe to 250 miles or less, makes absolute sense to be transported in an electric truck. You could control your costs, and that equipment should be able to outlast a diesel if it's operated and treated the right way. So that's number one. Number two, I lost my mom to lung cancer. And it is important to make sure that we understand the environment and what actually impacts our health. Transportation definitely impacts our health. We operate right out of the airport here at LAX. Those planes fly a few hundred feet right over our depots. I see the actual effect. So it's real. So I do think that number one, you need to make sure you have a business model that makes sense, lowers cost. I truly believe that does that at scale. And once we bring down the cost of these vehicles. And then number two, the impact on the environment, it's real. The transportation numbers are real. We do need to do something about it. If we don't, it's only going to get worse. But I do think that it's a very specific market for this, which is dense urban environment, that 250-mile or less. Everything else, we need to be realistic that fossil fuels will continue to be here, and that's the best way to transport goods across the country.
Lower cost, does that come from operational efficiency that Zeem can unlock for your partners and customers?
Very good question. Absolutely, yes. I mean, if you take each individual, you have an electric truck that's 2.5, 3 times the cost of a diesel. So right away, you're disadvantaged. Then secondly, hey, I got to figure out how to come in and put electrical infrastructure at my site. I need to recondition my site. Do I have a lease? Do I own it? There's another huge complexity, timetable, all sorts of risks that are involved. So that becomes very, very difficult. And then if you're operating a diesel fleet, you know how to repair and maintain. You have a whole new maintenance schedule and operational schedule when it comes to EV. So it turns the operation upside down. What Zeem does is we want to just provide the easy button. How do you start? By the airport, by the port. So we could come in and say, hey, try a few units, see how this works for you. And then you'll determine right away, do we save money? Is it more expensive? By bundling it all together, and Zeem building infrastructure and bringing in multiple fleets at one location, knowing a lot about the vehicles, making sure we know how to troubleshoot them so the operators don't stumble around with them and have operational issues. All of that provides a good experience. So if you provide a good experience and then it's actually below the cost of diesel, it's a no-brainer. So that transition, again, if you take the truck, you take the infrastructure, two major challenges, you solve those two, then you go into the fleet management side. That fleet manager is not used to running EVs and charging overnight and understanding the things they need to be aware of versus how they operate a diesel. So those complexities we remove for them and make it easy.
On the maintenance side, are there enough trained technicians to do the maintenance, or is there a shortage there today?
It's getting better. There's a major shortage, right? What's happening is we see it in the passenger vehicle market. It's just exploding, right? So there are good programs where people are being trained. And the good news is the passenger vehicle is far more complicated than the commercial. So those that are getting their learnings on the passenger side, it does transition over into the fleet side, which is good news, or the commercial side. That said, there still needs to be a tremendous amount of training. What Zeem is doing, we train on every vehicle that comes into our lot. We need to understand how that vehicle operates, the componentry, how to help troubleshoot any problems. That's a Volvo truck, Nikola truck, a Daimler truck, all the way down to a Tesla that's being operated by a rideshare. Having to understand how to really troubleshoot those vehicles and do those first 10 critical steps for maintenance and troubleshooting, that's key. That's something that we know very, very well. So we train our team to do that. But we also train our team to fix the charger. If the charger goes down at 2 o'clock in the morning and the truck is operating, you still have a major operational inefficiency. So we train our employees to know how to troubleshoot the truck and the charger. That's a big differentiator than some of the others. We literally went to our OEM for our chargers and our hardware. So ABB's are primary. And they trained our team on how to commission the chargers, how to service them, how to repair them. So then that way, if something does happen, we're on site to do it. No dependence on third parties.
You're solving a huge issue. We've all seen nightmares. We've all experienced it where the chargers don't work or the text, I'll be there in an hour. Okay, we go on to the next one. You're solving that problem from a customer standpoint. What is the business model? They pay you a flat monthly fee and, hey, don't worry, charger goes down, we're going to send a Zeem employee. You need maintenance, Zeem will handle it for you. What is the business model of Zeem and how does it benefit your customers?
We try to keep it as easy as possible. We have 3 different ways that we look at the world. So we have our multi-share depots like we have right now at LAX. And in that scenario, any fleet comes in, they have to be contracted with us. Their driver will enter into our depot. They'll get greeted by one of our depot coordinators. They'll do a quick walk around the vehicle and check for any damages on the vehicle. They'll do a quick inspection. They'll check for the state of charge on the battery. They'll go ahead and check the mileage and some other data points, record that. We'll then go ahead and ask the driver if they've had any troubleshooting issues. We then go ahead and pull that vehicle up to a charger. We'll charge that vehicle up. If the driver is going into the lounge area, they'll be notified once their vehicle is done. We have a white glove service. We literally valet the vehicle to the driver. Off they go. If they're parking for the day, we'll go ahead and charge that vehicle up and we'll position the vehicle, stage the vehicle for the next day operation. So that's one piece. A second piece would be, and we bill everything in arrears. So if that operator is leasing a vehicle from us or owns their own vehicle and is parking it and charging it with us, we bill them in arrears. We take all that information, we bill them on a kilowatt hour basis, and we try to keep it, again, as simple as possible for them. We also have a co-located model where some fleets will say, hey, I don't want to reposition. I don't want to go all the way to your site. I need that to be on my site. So what we do is we'll build at the customer site as well. But for us, we want to operate because it's not enough to just build it and walk away. It is complicated to operate it. You need to know the vehicle. You need to know the charger integration. So marrying that together is where fleets say, okay, I now don't have to worry about the truck starting or the charger working. You're literally giving me an opportunity that I pick up a fully serviced vehicle. It's ready to go. I come back, drop it off, and you're handling everything for me. That's a different way now for me to operate my fleet. So if this could work in electric and the price point is below the cost of a diesel, you're my test. You're the try before I buy, before I go all in.
It's smart. And then I'm assuming the economics change versus going to one of your depots versus a co-location depot?
Very much. If you go to my depot today, you could get started tomorrow. You could bring your equipment, you get started, you charge right away. We have a contract in that it's minimum 1-year contract where you come in, we estimate what type of charging you're going to do on a daily basis or on a monthly basis. We schedule that for you. We go ahead and provide you a contract based off that usage. If you go over, we go and make adjustments. We know many fleets won't really know what that usage is going to look like until they get 2-3 months of operations in there. So we work with the fleets like that. And then we make sure that, again, we provide the billing in arrears. We give very detailed rundown of every single charge session, any services we've provided, if we've washed vehicles, if we've done any service work, if we've done any warranty work. What we do is we want to be a one-stop shop that they know that every bit of everything they need to handle could be done at our spot.
With your co-locations, is that real estate owned by you? Is it owned by your customer, or is it owned by a REIT?
So it could be all of the above. In the co-location, typical co-locate would be a fleet that says, hey, I've got a lot of property, but I only need a portion of it. So I have my own fleet. I want to electrify, let's say 30 of my vehicles, and I have a 10-acre parcel or a 5-acre parcel. We'll come in and say, okay, we'll be a tenant at your site. We'll build the infrastructure. We'll fund it. We'll build it and operate it out of your site. You go ahead and procure the trucks on your own, or we'll procure them for you. And then what will happen is we provide them with a fixed fee. So they'll come back and know that if we procure all the vehicles, all the charging and all the construction work, they just get one price per month on that vehicle for a fixed term, typically 5 or 10 years on that co-locate. So the majority of the co-locates are done at the customer site where they have extra room. We also, again, have REITs that are coming back and saying, I know I need to get into this EV game. I don't know how to do it. It's very complicated. And then what happens is they know there's a lot of grant money that's out there, but there's only grant money if you actually operate in this arena. So the REITs are very disadvantaged because they know that this is something they need to do, but suddenly this is a huge cost for them to do without an off-taker. If you don't have that off-taker, if I'm a REIT, I'm not going to do it. So we're a good counterparty to that REIT to say, hey, we could bring our customers to that site. They're going to be a tenant for you. So that's great. So we're a good complement to the REIT. And then we could come in and operate. So what's great for that REIT, and we see this as a flaw for others, if you just simply put in the charging and the REIT comes in and operates it, suddenly that charger's not working. They say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. REIT owner, my charger isn't working. You're responsible for this. And they go, no, it's just a charger on our site. Right. So what happens is they want that level of separation. And I get it because it's a whole other business. So we come in for the REITs and say, we'll actually operate it. So we'll make sure the trucks are operating for that fleet. We'll make sure the chargers are operating. Therefore, they're going to pay you. They're going to be a happy tenant. They're going to have a good experience. So now you're wrapping EV charging and parking and maintenance and the whole 9 yards as part of your offering as a real estate entity. You're tapping into the fueling. You're tapping into the transportation side. So if I'm a REIT, how do I grow? How do I get additional profits and ROI? Here's an opportunity to do that. But you don't want to get into a whole other business. You want to have a good partner to do that. So Zeem wants to impress and show those REITs. That's exactly what we're here to do. We're here to build and co-locate at those sites and, again, operate so then that way the fleet has success and a good experience.
Why does Zeem want to take the fund, build, operate risk? Why do you want to take that risk in your business model?
Because I think we're the best at doing that. We're a purpose-built team. When we did this, the first thing that I knew we had to do is we needed to get charger experts, real estate experts, electrical engineers. We needed fleet managers. We needed to understand ingress, egress. We needed to understand truck yards. All of that was critical. So from the beginning, what was great is I just knew from day one, this was what I needed to target over time. So having that purpose-built team, and then realizing, okay, we can understand how to deal with the utility, how to deal with tariffs, utility costs, how to actually build and optimize the infrastructure, and then to think about the future. As an example, today, everybody who's building these depots are doing this at low voltage, 480 volts. We're already thinking about building at medium voltage and future proofing. Everybody says future proof because that's a good buzzword that people like to say. But the truth is we from the beginning knew that that's exactly what we needed to do. There will come a divide in the next 5 years. Is it hydrogen? Is it EV? I think it's both. But these sites that we're designing is going to be about a zero emission solution. Zeem is ZE for zero, EM for emission. So that could be hydrogen, that could be EV. It's about thinking about how to use energy the right way, how to use that in the transportation sector and be mindful of the stress on the grid, but then also think about down the road the distributed energy opportunities. So I see these as future mini micro grids to support the grid. Today, we're a huge draw on the grid, and we won't prove that we are supportive of the grid until we could actually be there in scale and be at a lot of the pain points. Remember, we're at LAX, major pain point, lots of power draw, lots of capacity issues. If we can push that back and forth and be good citizens of the grid, suddenly this whole political push that EVs are straining the grid, we don't have enough grid power, you have to use the batteries, you have to use what's constant power. Batteries are constant power. It doesn't need the wind, doesn't need the sun to be out. It's constant power as long as it's plugged in. So if you can think about it from that most basic level, there are chargers that do that today. Zeem site will do that. So we will be essentially one plug to the grid with huge mass amounts of power, but making sure we use the batteries on our site in the trucks, stationary batteries, to make sure we're good citizens of the grid. So that's a story for 3 to 5 years down the road. Right now, we just make sense of the world. It's a lease, it's a truck, it's a charging facility. And right now, keeping it that at its most basic level and proving that we could give a good experience to fleets, that's what we want to prove today. Future will be looking at the distributed energy side.
In the future, you could become a mini utility. And let's put regulations aside, certain states, different utility regulations. That's a very interesting business into itself, especially from the economic standpoint. Today, you're not quite there. In the future, you will get there. Today, how do you determine your site? Is it based on access to energy? Is it based on the location of the vehicles for your customers? How are you choosing locations of where to put Zeem today?
It's a really good question, and it's a big differentiator. We started this company in the beginning in 2017. We started off as an outbound calling company. We set up a call center in Schenectady, New York. To date, this is still actively going on. We've made over 1.8 million phone calls to fleets. We had a process where we understood make, model, year, duty cycle of the fleet if they own or lease their vehicles, and a number of other questions to understand if they really qualified and fit into an electric vehicle program. We then mapped that, and that determined where we need to be. Where do we build the depots? What kind of vehicles are they going to be operating? What kind of capacity do we need? So that really educated us on a lot. So that has been a huge, huge advantage for us. So having that data allows us to be a little bit more surgical in where we need to be. So number one, customer demand. If the customer demand isn't there, we're not going to build it, right? Even though Long Beach sounds like it's an amazing place to put an EV charging hub, there are multiple entities doing the same thing, right? So what needs to happen is number one, the trucks need to be there. They're not there. And they're 2.5 to 3 times the cost. And then number two, without having definitive customers, the investors, the real institutional capital that's going to help you scale something like this needs to have reliability. For Zeem, we need to have at least 25% market penetration. So in other words, if we have 100 parking spots, we need 25 of those to be contracted before we even consider breaking ground, right? So that ensures utilization. We're not wasting dollars. I don't want to take federal dollars as an example and go where I think electric vehicle adoption might be. Making 1.8 million phone calls, we have a determination of where we think that kind of activity is going to happen. And it's not quite where the federal dollars are going. So for us, we're focused on origin and destination. And within a proximity that makes sense for origin destination. Those corridors, maybe they'll come to fruition down the road. But today, right now, the activity is at the origin and at destination. So that's where you're going to see Zeem focused, making sure that, again, we provide a low-cost option and make sure that we're focused in those areas. And then one other thing that I would say, our investor is somebody called ArcLight Capital Partners. ArcLight is the largest non-utility asset owner in the United States. So again, they're not a utility, but they own the most utility assets across the country as a private equity. They have, and we've been working very closely with them, and you're going to see two news announcements come very soon in two major ports where power is not a problem. In fact, we have more power than we could deal with. What we want to do with that is show, again, this medium voltage build. We want to be able to show that we can support 500 trucks, for example, out of a site, but take high voltage, knock it down to 480 volts, provide DC fast charging, but make sure that we're changing the way that you would take, let's say, a decommissioning site, natural gas, coal fire plant, the pipes, the distribution and transmissions in place. How do you take those assets, repurpose them, and make sure you nail this adoption that needs to happen with EVs? That's where a lot of our focus is.
If you look at maritime patterns, there's been a very, very big shift in maritime patterns from West Coast ports to East Coast ports. And I'll single out two very important East Coast ports. Port of Baltimore, just despite the bridge collapse, is still a very vibrant port. And Port of Savannah, they also have that inland port there that they're doing stuff. Is that what we might see, Zeem? You might start to come into the East Coast just based on maritime shipping volumes?
Absolutely. Maritime to railhead, anywhere there's container movement that requires Class 8 trucking or drayage is an absolute target. What you're going to see is we're coming in hard on the Class 8 side. The reason why you don't hear us really jump up and down right now on Class 8 trucking is because there's just not a lot of electric trucks in the market. I know there's some data out there, but personally, I disagree with a lot of the data points that are there. They'll say that there's 15,000 medium heavy duty trucks in the market. I know this market super well. There's just not. The data is skewed because of the Bright Drop product. It's a light duty van. So when you start talking about medium duty to me is 12,500 GVWR or above. That's a class 4 category or above. So anything below shouldn't qualify in that statistic. So if you were to go and say, how many class 8 trucks are in the market, and I'm speculating here, but I would bet I'm not that far off within a 10% margin. There might be 1,500 electric trucks out there, might be. I would say it's probably lower than that. And right now there's a little bit less than 300 drayage trucks operating in Long Beach. So if you're going to go out there and say you're just a medium duty infrastructure provider, you got a long ways to go. So for us, we're providing infrastructure for fleets. So right now, if it's a car rental fleet that's going to come in and give me utilization, great. I need to make sure I sustain as a business. Environment is important for us, but number one, feasibility and scaling this business is number one, tip of mind. So for us, whatever needs to charge, that's where we're going to be focused. Class 8 is coming. And so now you're going to start to see a lot more from Zeem around the ports where that activity is. So now we finally have equipment that we could charge at our sites. Just simply wasn't there before.
Your number is very, very close. So you're spot on. According to this is the source of the International Energy Agency, credible sources, 1,200. That's globally, not United States. That's globally according to the International Energy Agency. And the sales increased 35% in 2023. It was even lower compared to 2022. So the number is very small. Do we potentially crack 2,000 globally this year, 2,200 globally, or is the adoption still going to be on the lower side? Are we even going to cross that magical 2,000 mark this year, do you think?
ACF, ACT, all these different regulations got bumped out to 2025. I do think you are going to actually see a lot more movement this year. I know that, for example, we're in a long line waiting for electric trucks. It's frustrating. And I know fleets share the same exact thinking. But what's happening and what you'll see come from Zeem is we're finding product. I'm very disappointed in the product that's available today and the cost and then the ranges and the performance. So I've had to look elsewhere. And what I think you're going to see is some new market entrants that are going to come in and really rock the industry. There is good product. It's just not in America right now. And what I think you're going to see is you're going to see some new entrants come in. You'll see those numbers start to increase. I think 25 is going to be a big year to move the needle. It's going to be because companies like Zeem and others that are similar to us, they're starting to open depots. They have charging infrastructure that could support more vehicles. Our co-locate model going into these fleets and building at their site is going to allow them to go from sort of trial and pilot of 5 or 10 or even maybe 50 trucks to really electrifying an entire site. So what's happening is now they finally have an option. Like they know fueling trucks, right? They know that they can bring Penske or Ryder in to do a full service lease program and operate at their site. Zeem is the future of that captive fleet operation. We're going to come in and operate at your site, provide the charging service, maintenance. We're going to be that going forward. It's just hard to see that today. And we want to make sure that the ports understand that we're going to be that provider for Class 8 and that we're the best partner for a dealer. We're your biggest customer. We're the best partner for those that are looking to be service and maintenance groups. We want to invite them and train them and make sure that they're keeping our vehicles on the road.
You're one of the few companies in the world that actually wants to buy them. So the dealer should be knocking your door down and potentially giving you a discount. You and I have talked offline several times about passenger car electrification, where if you take a traditional OEM that's taking a traditional chassis, electrifying it, it's not working. We don't have to name brands or names. It's not working. And it's well documented in the marketplace. Then you look at Tesla, built it from the ground up. It's working. The market numbers back it up. Does the same thing happen on the Class 8 side? Do new OEMs, similar to the Tesla Semi, that built it from the ground up without the traditional engineering, the traditional hierarchy, the traditional wiring, built it for electrification from the ground up, and will they actually succeed because it was built to work, not just built to be slapped together?
I love the question. It's such a good and important question. And this will upset many people, but it's fine. It needs to be said, and I say it to them, and it's better to be saying it in a public forum. The bottom line is federal motor vehicle safety standard requirements are very strict for a reason. If you and I buy a 69 Camaro, rip out the engine, put on fatter tires, Department of Transportation doesn't care. You could do whatever you want with that. So without pointing out one or the other, you take a traditional chassis, you rip out a diesel engine and you electrify it, and you go into the market, that passes federal motor vehicle safety standard requirements. Many will come to me and say, why did you buy Nikola? Are you crazy? These guys are going to go out of business. Well, Nikola went through federal motor vehicle safety standard requirements. They need to support that vehicle in the market. For every vehicle they sell, they need to have a 12-year tail that they could provide and support the vehicle in the market, even if they file for bankruptcy. So what happens is that's critical for me. Now, other vehicles that go through that process, it's important. So that federal motor vehicle safety requirement is, to me, a good validation. You need to be able to get into the U.S. market. You need to be able to have a vehicle that can stand on its own 2 feet. And when I see those that are building on an existing chassis and avoiding that process, is not a real jump in the pool, in my opinion, to make electric trucks. So they're there ticking the box. When I hear we've spent multi-billions of dollars tooling lines and building battery packs and doing et cetera, I haven't seen it yet, but somebody's got to be critical, and I'm happy to be critical. So I think that we need to see lower pricing. We need to see better innovation from those manufacturers here in the United States. We need to see them do a ground up, to your point. The reason why Tesla is killing it, when that Tesla Semi comes out, it's a game changer. It's because from the ground up, they knew it's all they thought about was making an electric vehicle, not saying, hey, on one side with this huge booming diesel business, how do we sort of tick the box here and show that we're moving in this direction? But when is that shift? And I respect and understand how difficult that must be for those big OEMs. That's why I respect the OEMs that are coming in saying, you know what, I'm only doing EV or I'm only doing a fuel cell, because those are going to be dedicated to trying to get a product in the market at scale. And I think that's where at least I favor. So I'd like to see the US manufacturers or those that sell into the United States really step up their game and provide a product at the right cost.
When do the OEMs, and some of them have sister departments, divisions on the car side, learn the mistakes from the car side? It seems to me this is a classic case of history repeating itself. We're going through this on the car side. The truck side, you're doing the exact same thing your sister's on the other side. Wouldn't somebody wake up at the board level and say, wait a second, we learned this on the car side of the business. Why are we repeating the mistakes on the truck side? Or are these boards so enamored and blinded by this green craze, they're not looking at the engineering reality, they're not looking at the economic reality, and they're not even looking at the current state of the global economy. They're just pushing forward and putting shareholders at risk, not to mention their customers.
I think you're bringing up such a great point. What it is, I don't think the OEMs know what to do. They know that there's a huge push for EV. And look, I come from Wall Street. My DNA is capitalism, right? You need to be able to have a competitive product, competitive pricing. When you start forcing people into doing something, that's a difficult scenario. I think that EVs need to stand on its own. We were talking offline, the Tesla Model Y is reasonably priced. It's got a great performance. That's why they sold over 1 million units. Customers want it. You could talk about being a tree hugger. You could talk about being a diesel head. Doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. It's about the consumer wanting to have a good experience. And if they drive an electric vehicle and it fits exactly what they need and it saves them money, and on top of it, it ticks the box for the environment, that's good. That should be a good thing. It should be celebrated. It shouldn't be political. So what happens is it just became so politicized that I think that the big OEMs, what I'm so frustrated about is the products are inferior. They're just not good. Tesla makes a great electric vehicle. I've yet to see another one that I could say matches that type of quality. And I'm including all the major OEMs that are out there. I was just in China and I was blown away with what I saw. I was in $15,000 electric vehicles that had fit and finish that you would think were $50,000 vehicles. So I think we just have a lot of catching up to do. And I think capitalism needs to play its role. You look at a vehicle, if it's economical and it fits what you need to do, then you should drive an electric vehicle if it makes sense to you. If not, then you stick to your petrol, and you shouldn't be chastised one way or the other. It should be a consumer decision, just like buying an iPhone or an Android.
It should be consumer choice. The consumer rules the end of the day. Without consumer spending, the U.S. economy's got nothing. I don't care what anybody says. The consumer spending drives the economy. It should. Consumers are buying the Tesla. It's cool. Like Elon or not like Elon, it's a great car. It's reliable. The charging works. And the most important thing for those you and I have experienced a legacy OEM EV, the software on the Tesla vehicle works. The traditional OEMs that have went to electric, their software's horrendous. It just doesn't function, doesn't work. Are you seeing any software issues on the truck side from the electric trucks, very similar to what we're seeing on the passenger EVs?
I think it's a really good question. I think there are some minor glitches. I'm glad to say a lot of it is around estimating range. A lot of it is state of charge. What happens is there's a little bit of some glitchiness in there. And I think the reason why passenger vehicles are far more complicated and have a lot more features that have to tie to the vehicle and integrate into the system. So that makes the software very difficult. When it comes to the EV trucks, what's good is it's real simple. There's not a lot of componentry. There's not a lot of bells and whistles. So therefore, the software probably is less glitchy for that reason. Now, also that said, there's not enough operational time on these trucks to be able to come back. I think that many OEMs are, I don't want to say the word secretive, but they're keeping a lot of that in-house. And what they'll say is, these are our first demo pieces or first production pieces. So we're working out the kinks. So I would say that there's probably more software issues than there should be, but there's nothing that's catastrophic tied to the drivetrain that shuts these things down. It is in some of the retrofit stuff that I've seen in the past, but on the stuff that is sort of ground up, and even the ones that are like the e-Cascadias and the Volvos, I think the software integration has been good.
What happens when you introduce a reefer into the picture? Does the range just go and sink?
When you go to meet with any commercial EV manufacturer, the moment you bring up reefer, you're going to see a different face on that person that you're speaking to. And the reason why is because it's complicated enough to think about the driver mentality and what that's going to do to range, what that's going to do to the battery performance. When you now add in even HVAC is really complicated. You'll hear OEMs come back and give you ranges of 11% effect, which is a lie, by the way, and then upwards of 30%, which is probably a little bit more true. So what happens is it's trying to integrate that. And how do you integrate that into an electric vehicle without getting these huge power draws? So I think that that's a major problem that needs to be known. So when it comes to the reefer, any additional power takeoff is, oh, wait a second, I got to go back and I need to work these figures to really understand. I would say that it's disappointing where we are in reefer. The good news on a Class 8 truck, the reefer sits on the trailer, so it doesn't sit on the truck. When it comes to box trucks, straight trucks, all the way down to the vans, now you have a problem with the reefer. I won't point it out, but it's a major OEM. I went to a show, a Work Truck Week. The actual engineer who put together the design had a reefer van, and I had to take the opportunity and I asked him, and he gave me the 11% number. So I just couldn't help but lean on him more and more and more. And he finally admitted and said, well, it really depends on the environment. That 11%, we tested that in an environment that was 40 degrees outside. And it's like, okay, well, that's not going to be the normal duty cycle. I get it. You're going to do testing and you're going to put out figures that are favorable to you. But the truth is, with Zeem, we operate this stuff. I don't make the truck. I don't build the charger. I just operate it. So it's good as operating it over time. I'm going to tell you the true range. Many of our partners that we buy product from will say, hey, why are you putting on your website that this only gets 100 miles? It actually gets 150 miles. And I have to tap them and say, look, we operate these trucks. We get 100 miles. We have to sell it to the customer with what we feel good about. And maybe it gets 120, but it doesn't matter. To me, I'd rather be on the side of surprising the customer and making sure that we underpromise, because at the end of the day, they're always being overpromised, falling short. Those disaster stories are what make the headlines in EV. What's great about Zeem is there's so many great success stories. I personally I'm bad at social media. I don't want my customers to be announced because if they are, they get harassed. And then they get phone calls from all of our competitors saying that they're going to undercut them. but they don't even have a charger or truck in their fleet. So what happens is I want to continue to deliver a good experience for the customers and continue to deliver and to make sure that people like yourself know that we're the real deal. And it comes from these kinds of interactions and your audience to be able to understand who's doing this right, who's not. And I appreciate the forum.
We're very happy to have you here. I want to ask you this from an operator's perspective, because in February, the Congressional Budget Office forecasted the U.S. Highway Trust Fund, a federally transportation fund financed by fuel taxes that pays for the road and mass transit projects, will be insolvent by 2028 without reforms. They're going to have to increase taxes. They're looking at electrification. We mentioned the $110 billion shortfall before. How concerned are you from an operator's perspective? Because 2028 is 4 years away. And when something goes insolvent, you just can't kick the can down the road. But we can turn the printing press on, but then you got inflation. And we learned that in the 70s. Are you concerned about that insolvency as an operator?
Absolutely, of course. I think the idea is, again, we're in an election year. So how are they going to actually solve the problem? My mind immediately goes into shut other programs down and fund the U.S. highways program. But I think there's a reality that we have to share the burden. We can't sit here anymore in 2024 after all the incentives that have been laid out there and say that we shouldn't be sharing the burden. I get that there's ways to motivate people to buy electric vehicles. I admire what China did. China, in order to get a second license plate, it's expensive. You got to buy your license plate. So if you need to buy a license plate for $10,000 or you buy an electric vehicle and it forgives the $10,000, that was the only incentive they offered in China. And that made the entire market explode. I think it's those kinds of things that we need to understand. The incentives have already been put out there. We know that the more affluent have benefited from those dollars. I think it's okay to spread the burden amongst EV and petrol. I think this whole keep going after oil is a bad thing. I think it's okay. Us EV drivers, I'm okay paying a little bit more. I'm okay participating the same way I did with my petrol vehicle. I think the more that we keep driving, that drives this wedge of divide. So I think my answer would be we all have to look across both aisles and say, look, this is real. You can't keep pushing everybody into the EV side. That's a more expensive vehicle. It's catering to the more affluent. So you need to make sure that it's spread across. So that would be my response.
Even Steven, well, I'll use the road. We could sit there and make an argument. You use the road, either in a gas car or an electric car. You use the road. You're getting a $7,500 federal tax break for the most part. There's ways to do it. And there is, I am not a fan of a road usage tax because I think that goes into the privacy. But there has to be a middle ground somewhere. Everybody wants to drive on a smooth road. Nobody wants to drive on a pothole road. When you drive on a road full of potholes, it's going to cause damage to your car. And oh, by the way, that costs money, which is economics, to get repaired. So you're better off figuring out some sort of compromise. So something is going to happen. We just, as you clearly stated, we have to remove the politics from it. On one side, you have the green folks. Oh, you can't do this. On the other side, you have the oil folks. We just have to come to a compromise. No matter what vehicle you drive, you have to pay to use the roads is the bottom line. The other thing is we both agree on electrification's coming. It's going to go across a variety of industries, a variety of use cases. You're sitting here at the Epic Center. You have access to a lot of data. You mentioned the 1.8 million calls you have. Where, in your opinion, is one of the greatest opportunities in the market today for electrification?
Clearly, I would say that's the two areas we are most hyper-focused, which is the ports. Right now, ports are running drayage. They have a lot of routes that are 200 miles or less. They're the most polluted. So that is an obvious one to me. And then the second one would be the airports. Again, we operate right here at LAX and we're right off the fourth runway. So all the big 380s fly right over our depot. And I'm not exaggerating, 150, 200 miles above our depot. So we're right by the landing strip. There is a tremendous amount of pollution. There's a tremendous amount of effect there. So I would say that the airports have to be electrified. The people who live around these airports, they're dying. It's not just a buzzword. It's true. Let's take the politics away. They're dying. And it is the disadvantaged community. So we could say whatever we want, right, on both sides of the aisle. Just go and stand there, drive around, and you're going to see it for yourself. So I think that the airports and the ports are the two very, very important areas that I would say are able to be electrified today and that they fit the pattern. But I also think that Zeem, we're very careful on how big we build these things. We think our site, for example, could accommodate about 170 to 180 trucks overnight. We could charge literally 1,000 vehicles throughout the day. So we could come in and out. But overnight, we have a capacity constraint. We do that purposefully because we realize like a market could be saturated. You don't want to overbuild right now. You want to be able to show investors that you have something that's bankable, scalable, because then that investment, that institutional investment, that's what's going to drive down costs, drive down and scale this whole thing across the country. So again, I'm a Wall Street guy in my DNA. The way that I see this is bundle this, put some reinsurance around this because fleets are concerned about a new technology, and then bring the cost parity below. Don't just say it. It's got to be below. You got to know, the policymakers need to know what is that number, right? And sit with the trucking industry and say, where do you need to be to make this work? I think that's where we need to be. And I'm feverishly going after that. I'm looking at how to creatively finance this as bundled. I'm trying to think about how we could remove the battery from the equation, finance that over a period of time to lower cost. But most importantly, push that down to the customer level. Don't go and be creative and then ingratiate ourselves. Create a business model that's repeatable, scalable, could have nice, healthy margins, but doesn't need to be taking all the incentive dollars, putting it into our own pockets, and trying to flip a technology or a business. I think it's important to make sure we're doing the right thing here.
Zeem's in this for the long haul. Zeem's focused on the economics of operating a business, not flipping a business. Paul, this has been a super insightful conversation. For today, what would you like our listeners and viewers to take away with them?
Number one, electric trucks work. It is a good solution for those that are running 200-300 miles or less. Anything beyond that, the critics are correct. It doesn't make any sense to be talking about that today. So electrification is happening. Companies like Zeem are figuring it out. There is a tremendous amount of innovation in the United States right now that's happening. We got to just try to sort of work through all the politics. Anybody, any of your listeners that are coming through LAX, come and check out the activity. EV is not dead. It's just starting. And it's companies like us that are different than the public charging world that are going to come in and be hugely impactful in making sure this transition happens and that it's actually done economically and that we do not affect the job market and actually impact it positively. That's the goal. That's what I really would like to see in 3 to 5 years, and the Zeem effect.
Ignore the noise. The EV market is a growth market. The future is bright. The future is autonomous. The future is Zeem. Paul, thank you so much for coming on the road to Autonomy Economy today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a real pleasure.